From Mike Moore Media, Ask Your Candidates, a series featuring local, state, and national candidates in the upcoming election, answering questions submitted on our Facebook page. And today, talking with R. Michael Jordan, Libertarian candidate for the Rockingham County Board of Education. He's on the line now. Robert, first tell us about yourself and why do you want to be on the school board in Rockingham County?
Well, I wanted to, when I was growing up, it was teachers at a very young age that determined that that figured out that I was dyslexic, and that's why I was having problems in school. And so I felt indebted to them because of that. And when you're in special ed back in those days, where I was at anyway, I had half of a class at a special ed class, and then I would ride to a regular school and spend the second half of the day. And that made me kind of a social leper, being the special kid that shows up for half of the day. And teachers were the one person that would usually talk to me in those situations. I did not have much of a lot of friends back then. When I finally got to high school, it was a teacher that suggested to my grandparents that we all went to church together, and she suggested that I do theater at the church. Theater led me into doing theater in high school, and I went to college, did a lot of theater there, and so that helped me get out of my shell and meet people, and I just felt really indebted to them. Years later, when I had my own children, and some of them were taking theater up here at Moorhead, Moorhead has a tradition, I would say, of periodically casting a teacher or two into the play as well as all the students. And so I got to meet some of the teachers. And I just got to see how much they were struggling and decided someone should be sticking up for these people. And that's what prompted me to run, because I have a friend that once told me, if you're going to complain about something, you should try to do something about it. And
sure.
That brought me to school board.
Okay. Well, it's always good to hear these stories when teachers, as we grow up, give us some direction and focus in our lives, and it sounds like that's certainly what's happened in your case as well. So those are good stories. Why are you a better choice? What really sets you apart from the other candidates, Robert?
Well, I'd like to say first that anybody that runs for school board is doing it just to be helpful. You know, there's not like a lot of money or power or anything like that involved. So I commend my opponents for wanting to be helpful, and I wanted to be helpful. I've noticed that my opponent has, what you would think was normally a bonus because they're an ex-principal. They have a tendency to fall back on she's periodically said, when I was a principal. I'm concerned slightly that these are unprecedented times, and there hasn't been a book written for how we're going to handle this and the pandemic and everything. And I think it requires some new thoughts and people thinking outside of it. Another part I was trying to push has been is listening to teachers and listening to parents. If you spent years working in the system and you know your job pretty well, you're not as inclined to listen to just people on the street. I'm not claiming to know the job as well. I'm claiming that I'm willing to listen to everybody's opinion and hopefully pick the best ones out of that. So I'm trying to just be a voice for the voter, as opposed to someone that's already established in the process. I'm sure there's already a lot of other people on that board that already are in that process.
Okay. Well, let's continue that thought there, talking about these are challenging times. COVID certainly has changed everything, including education. Give us your take on the situation now and in the future, if you would, please.
Well, I mean, I can't read the future, but but they are trying. Teachers overall with the COVID are trying their best to figure out how to just dealing with the new social media and they're having to relearn their jobs as well. So
on top of, let me just ask you this, on top of COVID and that the situation we're in with that, what do you see as perhaps the biggest challenges facing teachers today, and what would you do to address those challenges?
Well, I think the biggest problem with education overall is standardized testing. Standardized testing has a huge waste of money and probably more importantly time, because it doesn't teach kids how to think. It teaches kids how to pass a test. And Isaac Asimov once said that the only thing a standardized test shows is the person that takes the test knows what the person that wrote the test knows. Mm-hmm. It isn't a measure of intelligence in any way, even, except for maybe an IQ. Now, I'm not saying not all testing is bad. There should be something around grade 3 for, like myself, to catch kids that have got dyslexia or something that have a problem and that have been missed. And obviously you want kids going to college to have a certain level of skills with reading and writing and math and so forth. But I think that the focus has lost track. I mean, they've actually done things like their salaries are tied to how well they test. And that just seems offensive even. You know, testing should not be a production job. You know, children are all individual. They all learn differently. And teachers don't have, even after a 4-year degree, people don't trust them or to determine who can learn in different ways. And that's a big thing I'd like to see change. Not that a lot of that is done at the state level or federal level. I mean, that's done at the state and federal level. The biggest thing you can do at the local level, though, is that parents can actually refuse to have their children take tests. They can say, I do not want my child to do this. But that's not even made public because they're afraid of losing funding. Although I can't imagine what fallback they would be getting if someone said, oh, we're going to cut your funding because you didn't get enough test subjects. I imagine that story would terrify all the voters. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, sure. Well, we have a little bit of time left. Anything else you want to mention, or a message you may have as we go to the polls to vote, Robert?
Well, I think the Libertarian Party, especially in Rockingham County, is growing. Because I think that people have just become disenfranchised with the party system, the two-party system. I would say the third parties are slowly growing in that department. And the nice thing about libertarians, because people are like, someone has said, people from both sides have said you should run as a Republican or you should run as a Democrat. That's how you're going to win. But you should run for what you believe. And in my opinion, I didn't want to misrepresent myself. I don't want to run as a Republican or as a Democrat and say, well, I'm really a libertarian. But, and I feel that there's a lot of people out there that are libertarians that just don't know that they can get anything done that way. Last time I ran for an office, it was a lot of people would say, well, I would vote for you, but I don't want this other person to win. I was like, at least stand up for what you believe in. And if you don't agree with me, I'm fine with that. So it's an interesting times we live in. It's kind of scary, though, at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Well, it's good to have more choices when it comes to the election. That's for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, democracy is not, and that's a sad thing. A lot of races on both sides. Your big cities are all Democrat, and your rural communities are all Republican, and you really don't have much of a say either way. And it's not a democracy if you only have one choice when you go into a poll. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of scary as to how many votes around here are just, there's only a Republican on the ticket. And that's not the Republicans' fault. I feel certain that there are places in bigger cities like New York and so forth that have problems. They might have a person on the ballot, but still they don't have don't feel represented as well. Mm-hmm. So I think the more voice. I also think the more parties we have, the more people will have to work together to get something accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because one side can lock the other side out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, getting back to what you...
I just want to thank you personally for this.
Sure.
And spending some time and talking to me.
Well, glad to do it, and I appreciate, I was getting ready to say, getting back to what you said a few minutes ago, people who are candidates like yourself want to make a difference and are not in it to make money, as you put it. That's not the motivating source, but it sounds like you have some good reasons why you are on the ballot, and I commend you for doing that, and I wish you all the best in the election. It's good to talk to you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been wonderful meeting you.
Okay, we'll talk again. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our program today with R. Michael Jordan. You'll find him on the ballot that way. R. Michael Jordan, Libertarian candidate for the Rockingham County Board of Education. And just a couple of things to finish up. One-stop early voting underway now. You can vote at the Board of Elections office in Reidsville, also at Eden, Madison Made-In Public Libraries, and the Salvation Army in Reidsville. Here's a phone number for the Board of Elections. If you need more information, 336-342-8107. General Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. The polls are open from 6:30 a.m. till 7:30 p.m. This program has been paid for by the Libertarian Party of Rockingham County. You can find them on Facebook at facebook.com/RockLPNC. That's RockLPNC, the Libertarian Party of Rockingham County.